So we are going to be solving this LeetCode problem. It's called as the number of islands, and it's a medium level problem, and we're going to solve it using Java. It's going to be pretty simple, and you can use any programming language to kind of get into the same idea. Once you get the idea of how to solve it, it'll be easy. The programming language is just a tool for solving that. So what the question given here is basically an island is something that has water bodies around it, right? So they want us to calculate the number of islands given in a two-dimensional array, given ones and zeros. One is for land and zero is for water. Now you have to connect the land. Basically, it can go in the four directions, either up, down, right or left. Only in these four directions you can connect it, and you can say this is one island. Like that, you have to count it. So if you go to this question, this example here, you go for these four ones, this one, and this. So you can think of it like this. All of this is one island because they're connected together either in horizontally or vertically. But let's look at this example. This example is a bit different. So we have these four as one island, basically these two ones and these two ones, and then this one as a separate island, and these two ones. If you see, they're all connected either horizontally or vertically, and you cannot go diagonally. Although these two ones are placed close to each other, you cannot go diagonally, so you have to count them as separate islands and return it as three islands. That's what we're going to see how to solve it. So basically, the concept of how I'll be solving it, this is I'll do an iteration over the two-dimensional array, and whenever I see a one either in the four directions, I will just convert it to zeros and just keep track of that. And once I have all of them as zeros, all the ones either in the four directions, I have only zeros, then I'll just stop the counter and then I'll do it again. So like for example, this one, I'll just convert all of them to 0 and then make the counter to 1 and then again check if I have any more ones. Similarly for this one, I'll make these 4 as zeros first, increment the counter, then I'll make this one as 0, increment the counter, then I'll do the increment, make these two as zeros and increment the counter, and in the end the whole two-dimensional space will be just 0 characters, the character which has 0 in it, and then I'll give the counter out. So first we'll have the counter which will give the number of islands, and to iterate over a two-dimensional space you use two-dimensional array, you use two for loops, basically a nested for loop. I would be doing the same here. Yeah, hopefully that's understandable. Basically the first one is going in row wise and this one is going column wise, each element. And as I said, I'll be just checking if the character is basically a 1. So I'd say grid of I, grid of j equal to 1. Now if that's the case, we increment the counter by 1 and we call a function called BFS, which would be basically just breadth first. You do it one by one and then give it. So for that I given 3 counters which would basically go in the 4 directions and then tell us how the ones are. And what we want this function to return is basically the count. Now let's design the BFS function. So we call it public void call BFS, and we given char two-dimensional character array called grid, integer I and integer j. I just want to stick with the same name so it doesn't get a bit confusing. And this continues. Basically you have to check for the ones till when is that you don't reach below 0, you don't go above the length, and that applies for both I and j. And you don't, if ever you stumble upon a 0, which is the character 0 in double quotes, you stop. So that's what you're going to design. I shouldn't be less than 0, or I shouldn't be greater than grid dot length minus 1, or j shouldn't be lesser than 0, or j should be greater than grid of I dot length minus 1, or we don't want grid of I of j to be equal to 0. If it's either of these cases, you just return, nothing has to happen. And whenever we stumble upon a 0, we wanted to change it to so whenever we stumble upon a 1, we wanted to change it to a 0, the character. And then we continue, this being a recursive call, so we just continue that. We say we can just actually call this, I'll just copy this, so it'll be easier for us to write and visualize it. and we'll just do it for all the 4 directions: up, down, left, sorry, right, and this is for left. So it goes in all the 4 directions and it works. So it just checks in all 4 directions always. It doesn't go diagonally, because that's what the question asks us. You may surrounded by water and it's formed by connecting adjacent lands horizontally or vertically. We have to stick to that condition. So now let's run the code and see. Yeah, we've got it, and we will submit the code. Yep, that seems to work pretty fine. We have done this. So that's the question. I'll put the link to the question in the description. It's basically the 200 problem called number of islands, and this is in the LeetCode problem section. You can go and check it out.